think we're live.
I think we're live, I guess.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Community Office Hours Package Awards recap, special guests, demos, whatever session we want to call it. iPitch was started, so I'll introduce myself. I'm Lotte Pitcher, a member of the Community Package team. David, do you want to go next?
Yes, I'm David. I'm also a member of the Community Package team.
And I am Richard Ockerby. I am also a member of the Community Package team. I was part of the judges when we did the Package Awards, and both myself and Lotte hosted the Package Awards, which is great. And we have two other special guests with us today. We have Lee and Sam.
Hello.
Say hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm Lee Kelleher. I am not a member of the Community Packages team, but yeah, a long time sort of Umbraco community person, I guess. Yeah, MVP a bunch of times and lots of packages.
And I'm Sam, and I'm not part of the team, and I'm not a community legend, but I have built a package on Umbraco recently, which hopefully we'll be talking about.
Indeed, you are an award winner, Sam, so I think that does make you a legend. So, you know, no modesty here, please.
Legend status right out the door, Sam.
Oh, fantastic. Glad to hear it.
So, I kind of guess we'll start this off by having a little bit of a recap of kind of how we've come to this talk today. So, during Codegarden this year, we had our Package Awards, and I wasn't around for when we did the original Package Awards, but I understand they were slightly different to the way that we did them this year. This year it was a bit more structured. We had a bit more kind of community essence behind it. There was 7 judges altogether, so we had 2 of us from the package team. There was 4 community members that we got on board, and there was Warren from HQ who helped us with the judging panel. So we asked the community which packages they really enjoyed, which ones they wanted to kind of put up for an award, and we had them in 8 different categories. So we had 7 different areas, which are things like best newcomer, best editor experience, things like that, and then we had 1 overall winner, which kind of we just felt was key to the Umbraco ecosystem. So yeah, that's how that went down. So there was myself and 6 others, and we spent quite a while going through all of the nominations. I had quite a lot of fun, actually, because there was loads of packages in there that I'd not heard of before and not used in an Umbraco sense. So it was great to just dip your toe into what was out there and see what was there. So that was good. And if you want to find out more about all the winners, all the runner-ups, everybody that was there, we have a blog post which got put out not long after, which is on the slide there. A lot of you were there for the original stuff, weren't you? How it went down years before. So I guess Lee was as well.
Yeah. Lee, you must have entered the original package competition.
I think one year I came 3rd. That was it. But yeah, I think Warren's just put in the comments that the way they used to judge it was through some kind of applauseometer. So whoever had the loudest applause, which was mostly the humorous packages, then you were the winner.
Yeah, it's when a package that had been made after a few drinks the night before ended up winning. It sort of doesn't, and then you had someone else who was demoing like a year of work, and they got shooed off the stage because they couldn't get their demo to work within the allotted time. It wasn't exactly fair. It was fun, don't get me wrong, pair, if you're listening, but yeah, it wasn't a fair representation of who was deserving to win. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, so that's where we're at with that. So what makes a winning package? Was this yours, Lotte? Did you put this slide in?
No, Richard, I think this was you, but I think this was when we were going to talk more to our guests, Lee and Sam.
Oh,
should we start with Sam? Hello, Sam.
Oh, we're starting with me, are we? Fantastic.
Yeah, why not? We wanted to know. You won Best Newcomer Award. That's in the public domain now. Congratulations. And we'd like to hear perhaps why did you build xStatic? we'll get to a demo in a little while. Don't worry, we're not going to rush you to do a demo, but let's just have a chat first, if that's all right with you.
So mainly, I wanted to host the website as cheaply as possible, so that a lot of it was I wanted somewhere to put my photos. Secondly, I kind of wanted somewhere to have a bit of the online presence, maybe to get a new job, which I did end up getting, but had nothing to do with Umbraco, so who knows. So it was one of those things where you try the existing solutions out there. Wasn't really a fan, didn't particularly like WordPress. So then I came all the way back to Umbraco and thought, how could I host this most cheaply? And that involved spending ages making a new product so that I can host it for free.
And I know one of the judges, Janae, was she just couldn't stop talking about how quick and easy it was to get up and running with xStatic. How did you find the whole sort of actual package creation, deployment, publishing process?
I actually quite liked it. So the interesting thing is, so I've actually started on the version 9 version now, and it's sort of completely different. So I get to see both sides of it now. But yeah, I thought it was really simple. Really quite enjoyed it, to be honest. And I used UI-O-Matic for it. And it's only now that I'm making the version 9 and trying to remove dependencies, you sort of realize just how good that package was at streamlining the development. It was incredibly useful.
Excellent. It's really good to hear that you enjoyed the process of creating the package, because quite often that's the pain point that we hear from people. But clearly the package team has been doing a good job if it wasn't that painful.
I mean, building stuff in AngularJS is almost nostalgic now. So
yes,
kind of has that retro vibe.
Right with Umbraco, go retro. Oh dear, it's being recorded, this, isn't it? Yeah.
Shouldn't have invited me.
Brilliant, I love it. How about you, Lee? Where did the inspiration for contentment come from?
I guess, yeah. I mean, I was chatting about this with Matt and Kevin on the podcast. The podcast, insert plug here, the Package Manifest podcast, where the history of contentment came from, and I think it does kind of go back to what I used to do with U components. If there's any V4, V6 watches today. You know, so yeah, it was just like a collection of property editors, but I wanted to take the sort of the time to make each of the property editors as best they could be. So quite a lot of craft personship would go into these things. So I guess that's what would make a winning package is the kind of the level of care and detail that you put into it, into the effort, I think.
And how's your version 9 coming along? The classic question. Done.
Dusted. Churned
Brilliant.
out.
Brilliant. Beat you synced to the finish line.
Oh no, no, Kevin got there first.
Kevin got there first.
There's no beating Kevin.
No, but he also does it literally for a living, so it's really not a competition. Shall we? What do you reckon? Should we start with the demo from Sam? Shall we see xStatic in action?
Let's do it.
Yeah, happy to.
So what I'll do is I'll stop sharing my screen. That's okay, Sam, and we'll get you on board.
Will do. All right then, which one shall I do? Can we see anything?
Yes, we can see your screen.
So
It's an incredibly wide screen.
Oh yeah, I do have ultra wides, a couple of them on top of each other. So this is the simple bit. So this is really what it was all about. I still hadn't got round to writing an article about winning it, so luckily this forced me into doing it. So let's just sort out my mic before I do that. So we just got a standard Umbraco page. The whole site itself is exactly as you'd normally build it. So that's part of the concept behind xStatic, was that you don't change how you build an Umbraco site at any point. You just handle that within the static site generator. So if you ever needed to have a website with membership functionality, let's say, which you actually wanted to use the dynamic parts of Umbraco, you didn't actually have to change your code. You just stopped using xStatic. So xStatic just has its own section, and you can create as many of the site configurations as you like. I'm not going to open it just in case it does give away any of my stuff, because this is actually hooked up to my Netlify account. But essentially what it is you just fill in your details, and you can set up auto deploy, but I've got it manually at the moment. So if I actually do publish this page, which should hopefully be done, we can see this is on my actual website. We have 5, and in preview mode, we've got 6. So hopefully if the demo goes all to plan, we will see that when it builds this, I should end up with 6 articles on my website, a massive 6. You can tell how devoted I've been to the process of writing. So first stage is what I've just done there, is the build, and that just traverses the Umbraco tree. It gets the pages, creates static versions of them. You can do certain transformations as part of that. So examples are it automatic. So when you're using the Umbraco image cropper, it will actually change the URL it uses, and it generates all of those static image sizes that it pushes up to Netlify, or it can Git, or it can be just FTP. There's a few different options. So now if I press deploy, in theory, we should be able to see in real time in Netlify, as soon as I've pressed the deploy button, it's already finished, I think, we can see in Netlify that it's automatically creating a new version of that site. Now, the thing I really like about Netlify is you can actually switch between your versions. So if you did something wrong with your content, or if, I don't know how you break a static site, but if you break a static site, you can immediately roll back to something that was there. So let's see if we get our 6th article, and there we go. We have 6th article, and in probably about 2 minutes, that is the most basic demo of xStatic you can get.
And it worked. So
And it did work.
1 for 1. This is brilliant. And so it posts to Netlify. I can't say the word. Where else can you post to?
So currently there's 3 what I call deployers. So there's the Netlify deployer, which is what I initially built for me. And then there is a Git version. So that works quite well for GitHub pages. Or you could actually use that for Netlify as well. I think even some of the things on Azure you can just push to with Git nowadays. So that's quite a nice way. And then there is the FTP version, which is probably my least favorite of the bunch, but it is supported everywhere. I'm sort of halfway through a web deploy version, which I started working on. So you could just use certain Azure resources quite easily. And I don't know, I know there is talk of it, not from me, but a blob storage version, which is also a really good version for static sites. So what I'm hopefully doing with my version 9 versions, because it's all NuGetted rather than a package, you like xStatic will come maybe with no options, maybe just the FTP one by default, and then it should be easy to create like add-ons that you can just install with NuGet, get configured, and you should be easy to contribute, build your own, change it as you like.
So when you were actually developing this one up, Sam, was the it sounds like the majority of the work was in the actual generation of the static site?
I mean, static site generation isn't really that hard. So I don't know if the majority of the work was in it, because it's just calling it with a client and saving the output. Then some of it was the architecture for making it pluggable, so you could, there's the concept in xStatic of transformers, which is you take the raw markup that Umbraco creates and you can run it through a transformer to alter your markup somehow. So like I was saying, maybe changing links or image URLs, or host names is one of the transformers that I use to change from my local one to my actual sammullins.co.uk. So it's things like that. And then, of course, actually making the interface in Umbraco took some time as well. I don't think there was a particular thing that took the most amount of time. There's just a certain amount of parts to building something like this, and you just build them as they come.
So if I wanted to publish to an Azure static web app, would I be able to use this to do that?
So you could probably do that with FTP at the moment. And then when I get round to finishing the web deploy one, so I have pushed to a static web app in Azure using my my web deploy one, which seemed to work really nicely actually. But I was working with others to try and get it working on other hosting providers, and it wasn't working for that. Potentially, it needed admin permissions to do the kind of web deploy that it does. So there's a few hurdles there, but hopefully that's something that, well, either it's a known limitation, or we do find a way around it, and that'd be a really nice way to deploy.
In theory, you could also push to GitHub repo, right? And then with GitHub Actions, you can actually deploy everything.
Yeah. So yeah, there's quite a few ways you could do it.
Yeah, because I discovered basically you can host pretty much for free these days if you're just static, right?
Pretty much. So that's exactly what I do. So this Umbraco instance you see in front of me is actually on my machine. And then, yeah, I publish it to Netlify, which is free, but you can, I mean, like you say, loads of other free ways of hosting your content.
Such a good idea.
Yeah. I wish it was built earlier.
So that's actually part of the story, is I did build something very similar to this maybe 10 years ago, but not as an open source product. It was I built it as a proof of concept at my old agency, which they then used to build like a highly scalable, secure site just on it. And I think that's probably how I got round to thinking of it as an idea, because it's always been there in the back of my mind since the early 2010s.
And so are we going to see other packages from you, or do you think just sort of keeping xStatic going and working on version 9 is?
Static version 9 is the one at the moment.
Fair enough.
I do have Umbraco Folio, which is so basically every component on my website is open source that anyone can use. Don't know if it's a package necessarily, but you can always clone down the repo. Just steal what you want. So it might be that I do that. Who knows? It's normally, if there's a problem that needs solving, that's probably what will drive it, to be honest.
Have you come across any limitations of this yet? Sorry, Lotte.
Other than the web deploy one I was talking about, what have we come? So there's a few things which we just need to put in some features. So Phil Whitaker and I, when we were talking over it, it was things like sitemaps and redirects and things like that. So you can't handle your redirects at the Umbraco level because it would be done on different providers. So, but there are ways around it. So I know that Netlify, for instance, you can just have a file with a certain name in the root of your in your web root, and that configures all your redirects as you deploy each static site. And one of the things you can do in xStatic is you can set like static asset paths. So normally that would be for CSS files and JavaScript files, but there's no reason why, if you didn't generate a sitemap XML at some point, it couldn't just package up that and chuck it up to whichever server you're using. So most of the time there's a way around it. But I'll admit I haven't done anything too clever with it. So I haven't, my site is just a brochureware site, essentially. There's no functionality.
Yeah.
So it gets to, if you need to interact with Umbraco, how are you going to do that? And there's no reason why you can't. So it's still going to perform better because you're not using Umbraco for the rendering every time someone uses it. So even if you did open up connections to the Umbraco server itself for specific API calls, let's say, there's still a benefit to using it. It's just not the use case that I built it for me.
Yeah, and I guess with the flexibility that you basically doing, you're just taking the site and generating HTML from it. It opens that door to basically do whatever you want with it, doesn't it?
Yeah, so one of the things I would like to do as well is add to it is, so I've got, so we can see sort of where my mouse is now, I say exports as an HTML website. You can also export as a JSON API, but it's a pretty pointless one. So what I would like to do is see how something like Next.js, what kind of APIs that would need. And then you could export a JSON API that like a truly nice headless system could use. So it's sort of, it's a potential thing that I'm thinking, because then that's, so if you were building PWAs, let's say, you could almost make all the content within Umbraco, push it to a static place, and then, yeah, apps could use it, stuff like that. I think, yeah, there's a lot of potential. It's just coming to those times, I think, and me having time to build the things, build all the things.
We have a question from Warren asking what you would recommend for search using static sites if you've used search on static sites.
So yeah, that is one of the interesting things. I haven't even thought about it, if I'm honest.
So the answer is nothing.
Yeah. So I guess this is probably one of the things I was talking about, that you might need to connect back to Umbraco. I was wondering if there is, and like, I never looked into it, but it was an idea that I had, is there some kind of way that you could have examine or whatever accessible from the static site, but not the whole of it? But yeah, it's not something I've gone into too far yet.
I think there are actual JavaScript-based solutions to that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so. At least if I remember correctly, because I built my current website, my homepage, with a static site builder from Vue.js, and it has actually search built in, and
wow.
it's based on some JS stuff. So I think it could be possible also with that. Just
So
based
there
on
you go. Maybe a future thing to add. That does sound like a good idea. But it comes back to, so one of the, like I said, one of the main concepts I had is I don't change how I build an Umbraco site. And I mean, it's not obviously a hard and fast rule, but when I'm trying to build things for xStatic, I want people to just build their Umbraco site as they would, press a button, and then it magically works in a static context. So it'd be really cool to find out if there was a way to do that.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
It's very nice to meet you too, Sam.
It's nice to meet you all too.
Yeah.
I've got one last question for you, Sam.
Go for it.
What were you doing when the awards were announced?
I was actually on a conference call, and I just saw like my phone buzz with like Twitter, and I just sort of like pressed the thing. I was like, oh, so that sort of added a little smile. And then when the call was over, I could finally catch up and see what was going on. Because yeah, unfortunately, I don't work with Umbraco, and so I'm not able to just get time off to go to Codegarden, even when I don't have to fly to Denmark.
Yeah, thinking about it, maybe we should have told the nominated one that they were going to win. Maybe you might want to be watching, but then that would ruin a surprise, I think.
I did feel a little bit guilty, I'll admit.
There's always the recording on YouTube if you want to watch it.
Exactly. Yeah,
relive
just to
the
see
moment. Let it be me.
Yeah, relive the moment of deafening silence as Guy doesn't turn up for award.
Don't worry, you no one was given their awards live apart from the overall winner, Kevin Jump. So you were. It wasn't obvious that you weren't watching. Let's put it like that.
Fantastic. Phew.
Don't you worry. What's next, Rich?
Next. Sorry, that's back to me, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll not bother sharing my screen because there's only one more slide on it that we're going on. But one of the other packages that won an award this year was a package called Matryoshka, which I'm assuming a lot of people are familiar with because it was in the nominations quite a bit, and it's been around for a little while, I guess, since 8 was out, really. And what it does is it brings back tabs into version 8, which everybody missed when they went, right? So it's only a good thing. Lotte is going to give us a demo of how it works. Is that right, Lotte? I'm right in that? Yeah?
Hopefully.
Yeah. Nice.
Can you see my screen moment?
We can.
Yes.
Okay, good, thanks. So I just thought we'd have because there isn't that much to show for Matryoshka, and Søren is very sorry, but he's on holiday, and I agree with him. His holiday is more important than this. But so I just thought we could just do a little trip down memory lane. So this is version 7 of Umbraco, and you've got the starter kit. Oh, come on, computer. Da, 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 da. And we have what's called tabs. And then we upgraded to version 8, and because you can never be logged into, or at least I can never be logged into more than one Umbraco site at a time, I'll have to keep logging in. Then they gave us version 8, and suddenly tabs are gone, and tabs have become groups, and they were in one long scrollable list if you had lots of properties and lots of groups. So tabs here on now known as groups. And as you can imagine, that caused a big hoo-ha. Lots of people were quite sad that tabs had gone. It completely changed their content editing experience. So Sebastian Janssen from the HQ, I think he said it was a Sunday afternoon hack, he built a package called Tabify just to prove that you could put them back in the back office if you wanted to. But I don't think Seb ever intended this to be a sort of long-lasting, officially supported package. It was more a proof of concept. You can do this, and I think to his relief, then Matryoshka came along. Søren built Matryoshka, which was bringing back tabs, and released this package to everyone's relief, because now you could then install the Matryoshka package, and what were groups would suddenly look like tabs again. So that's ostensibly the very simple version of Matryoshka won best innovation / hack. That's the award that Matryoshka won. And then Søren took it a bit further. He added the ability to have group separators, which you could then say whether they are open or closed when the page first loads. You can set them so they're open when you're creating, but closed when they're editing. So here's an example of a group separator in place, and you could decide to add it as a bookmark up from the tab as well. So that's basically what Matryoshka does. I think it's safe to say that this package won't be winning next year, because by next year, tabs will be back in native Umbraco. There's a very long discussion on the discussions part of GitHub, which it's on the roadmap, but it should be Q3 this year. And there is an open pull request, which is for putting tabs back into the PR. Clearly it was quite complicated, 170 commit, who knew? And so tabs will be back soon in the core, and Søren is now, he put a tweet out there, he was wondering how people were using the group separators, put a poll out there so he could understand how people are using them, because he's now trying to help people who use Matryoshka be able to migrate to the native way that Umbraco are doing it. So when it's released, that people will be able to swap back to being using the native way of doing it. So this is a package that has a short but incredibly important lifespan, I think. And that is Matryoshka.
So simple as well. I think one of the things that we found was really good about this package when we're doing the judging was just the fact of how simple it was. It wasn't a massive functionality change. It wasn't a massive thing that went within Umbraco. It was just something really small and subtle and just almost like you didn't even know it was there.
Crashed everything.
Yeah.
And gave the HQ when every week when someone added to the issue, no, really, where have tabs gone? Well, look at this package and it will solve your problem.
So that was Matryoshka. So Lee, this is your time to shine, my friend. So you did Contentment, which won Best Editor Experience.
Prestige, the Prestige, so, yes.
Come on then, show us what you can do.
Okay. Were you surprised?
I was surprised. I honestly thought Usync could have just like swept the board. Right.
We were very careful when we were selecting the winners because we were just like, oh, Usync, oh, it's really good. But no, got to give other people a chance, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to do the obligatory. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Okay. First, no demo fail. Okay. So yeah, it's available on our Umbraco package repository and NuGet. Contentment, as the whole thing explains, is a collection of property editors. They're listed here. Some of them are things that are useful enough or kind of markety enough that people would want to install the package. But then other things are, if you've installed the package and you suddenly find these little, I don't want to call them gems because it's kind of self-ego, isn't it? But yeah, if you find these other little editors, they may enhance your editor experience. So I can run through these. So once you've installed it, and you won't see anything different in the back office, but you will get in your data type section, you'll get a list of, I don't know if these don't render, do they? Is the list showing?
Yeah, we can see the drop down.
Oh, okay. I never know if drop downs show on screen share. Maybe it's just Hangouts, they don't do it. So yeah, you get a list of, obnoxiously, I put them all up at the top by using square brackets just to kind of make them a bit separate. And yeah, but yeah, you get a selection of the property editors. The most popular one by a long way is data list. For any like old time Umbraco users who remember, well, either like uComponents, but also there was one for V7 called New Pickers, which I did have some involvement with at the initial start of that project. It was like a follow-on from uComponents, but it was an idea of that you would have these different editors where you would be able to pick from different data sources. So there would be one for like XML for radio buttons or something. So an idea I had years ago for the uComponents, but could never realize because my Angular skills weren't there, was to have one property editor where you could pick a data source and a list editor and then be able to swap those around if you wanted to. So for Contentment, with the latest version, when I first released Contentment about a year ago, over a year ago, I only released a handful of kind of generic data sources, things like XML, JSON. But now with the latest version, I've gone a bit overboard. So I've added all sorts of data sources. So you can pull in data sources from all over the place. You can, I can show examples of what you can use. I won't demo everything, otherwise we'll be here for hours. But the general thing is that you would pick a data source. Say you wanted to pick, I'm trying to think of something. What could we pick? I've got one for like a list of countries that are available in the .NET framework. And then if you pick a list editor and you're given a selection of list editors, I want it to be checkbox list, buttons, drop downs. Let's just go with drop down for this example. There is configuration for that drop down, whether you want to have an empty thing at the top, empty option at the top or not. And there's some other, you can add some HTML attributes to the drop down if you want. But if I press done, what will happen here? So it's running a bit slow because my computer doesn't seem to like screen sharing and processing things at the same time. What I've added in a more recent version of Contentment is the preview. So you get a preview of what the editor looks like. So this is what it would be on your content. But you also, if you wanted to inspect what it was in the list of data sources to see what you would be getting back, you could also do that as well. So, with the countries from .NET, you would get a list of all the country names with the ISO, whatever it is, 3166 country code. And then also if you wanted to see what the JSON of that is. I'll come to why the JSON bit's important, because maybe people know this or they don't. There is a facility in I've got a data source. If I remove this one, you can add your own like user-defined items. So if you wanted to, you wanted to add your own item, you could do add your own icon. What's the load? I'm just picking random things, but yeah, so that would add in. But I have here, if you have the JSON, you could paste in some JSON if you wanted. So if I copy this JSON, okay, and I click on this little button that says copy here, there is also, if you use property actions, say edit raw value, but it's the same button. So if I paste in that JSON that I've just pressed copy, I can then get those items, and if I click done, that will show those items have come through, but also you get a drop down with those. And then if you decided that you didn't want to have a drop down list, you wanted to have something else, say it was going to be multiple selections, or you wanted to display all the items as radio buttons, you could say, okay, show the descriptions, show the icons, and then you would then have these. So when you've got this on your content, if you want to swap and change to a different editor, you can do that. But that's where most of the main reason why people install Contentment is to use this. But there are loads of other editors. Do I have? I don't know how much time we do have. I might get carried away. Yeah, I don't know. Do I talk more about this?
You've still got plenty of time, Lee. You
okay.
talk as much as you want, pal.
Okay. Well, okay. Yeah. I think I was going to show where you can have your own bit of code, but the point with these data sources and also the list editors is that I've got right down at the bottom, if you can't, if you can't find something you need, then you can have a custom data source. There's some documentation on how to implement your own. So it would be a case of implementing a C# class that has a certain interface to say get the items from somewhere. But I think most people are either using Umbraco. See, I have telemetry. I'll get back to this. But most people are using Umbraco content or the enum provider. So with the enum provider, there is, if it loads up, it's not usually this slow. This is the screen sharing thing. It's not loading up. That is unfortunate. It would show, that's the demo fail. I've had one, but it would show. But I do have some pre-configured with the right enumerable. So most people use the enumerable. Well, they use the content, but the second one is the enumerable. If you create your own enums, I'm trying to figure out how to share this in the browser because you don't get any color coding, so it's a bit difficult to see. But if I zoom in, if you have your own enumerable, let's just say you wanted to make something with alignment, then you can add in attributes to the top to say pick set an icon, set a value for it. I do have another one which I'll show now. This is my main one for testing of like social networks, really. So I've wired that up. So if I flip over to my content pages, I've set up a page that has the same data source, but for all the different types and all the different options that you can have. I mean, like the checkbox has a check all button, which is quite helpful. You don't have to have that. That's optional. Drop down, radio buttons, an item picker. So this is very similar to like Umbraco style. You've got the items on the side. You can pick what you like. You can configure this to be just pick one or have a multiple like checkboxes to say you want to add multiple things, or you can also have like the search filter as well on top of some people have asked for pagination. I can't get my head around how that would work because because of the nature of reusing these data sources, pagination would also have to be applied to radio buttons. I don't really know how that would work. Yeah, so some of the other list editors we've got, templated list. This will be, I'll show this one in a moment. But yeah, this and tags. People started to ask for a way to have an Umbraco tag interface for data sources. So you can just start typing, and they will start. You'll start to see, and you can pick as many as you like. You can also configure this to show icons and buttons. I never thought about buttons. Well, I did, but I didn't really like it because the UI for buttons, I didn't really see if you were going to use buttons. Why would you, you could just use a checkbox list, or you could use, something else. But when Umbraco Uno came out and they had buttons in their UI, which is not part of Umbraco, it's part of Uno itself, there was a demand for it. So now we have buttons in contentment. So if you want a button UI, you can use this. The templated list, this was one where people were asking for custom markup. I say people, I don't know, who are these people? So the templated list is a way, okay, if I open this up, you can add in your own markup. If I can maybe zoom into this a bit more. So you can add in your own markup however you want. So as long as if you know a bit of styling or what the Umbraco style sheets and style CSS classes are, you can probably make quite a nice UI to this. If you don't, I've added some help at the top to say that this is the kind of the schema for the data items, and if you wanted a basic example of what to add in there, you could copy that and paste that in. Or you can go to town and make nice card layouts. It's up to you, however you want to style this thing, and you can add extra HTML attributes to the items and things like that if you wanted. Like that's for the container item. Probably waffling a bit. Right. So yeah, so that's the data list. But then the other editors that we've got are little things that I wanted to make nicer for the editing experience and Umbraco in general. Like a big one for me was always, if you uploaded media, I think I've already added this in. If you've uploaded media, you would always get the size in bytes, and I never with some content editors, when they uploaded a big image, it was just like a big long number, and I was like, how many bytes is that? I mean, I can work it out, but they had no idea. So I've added a property editor, which is just a read-only one called Bytes, which gives a nicer kind of user-friendly version of the bytes. But if I flip back to show you the config of that, one moment. So we can say things like this. There's always arguments of how many bytes are in a kilobyte. So you can say if you want it to be 1,000 bytes or 124, and how many decimal places you want, and customize it as you need. Trying to think of the other editors. A lot of these other editors came from me needing, that I needed for data list, really. So the code editor, which I had for like the SQL, and also for the SQL data source, and also the templated list editor, I've made into its own property. So you can, or property editor, so you can use that in your content and say what language mode you want it to be. What themes do you want? Umbraco only ships with one theme. If you need to add more themes, because this is all based on, well, I write about this in the help. This is all based on the ACE editor, which is a library that comes with Umbraco. So there's instructions on how you can add more themes and more languages if you wanted to do that. What font size you want for the code editor, all the kitchen sink, all the options. Other editors we've got. I had an icon picker, which is what I needed in some of the other data listings. So I've made it its own property editor. But when I first did it, I thought this is a terrible idea, because why would you ever use any of these back office icons in the front end? But interestingly, in a more recent version of Umbraco, now they've changed to SVGs, it is totally possible that you could share those SVGs on the front end and the back end. So then this becomes more relevant. You can have an icon picker. If I had a way of filtering down you know, what selection was in here, I would do that, but I can't do that. Yeah, and then some of the other ones was, oh, this is actually the second most popular editor in Contentment, which is Notes. So back in the uComponents days, we had I think Matt Brailsford created Editor Notes, which was a rich text editor where you could just put a label, and that's what you would display on the content section. And I've added that because I'm adding help notes all over the place in the data sources that I've made it its own property editor. And yeah, there's some other editors in here, but I won't delve into it. You've got to install the package yourself and have a play around.
Well, when we were playing around with it, when we were doing the judging, we found a lot of that stuff. But I don't know whether you've done a new release since we last looked at it, but there was a load of stuff that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah, the most of the new stuff is all to do with the new data sources, where I've gone a bit crazy with adding all sorts of things. So, I mean, one thing I've started to do is, I think a couple of versions ago, was add telemetry. So I'd be able to see what editors were being used, but also the important one for me was see what custom editors were being used. Because if people start making them, then if multiple people make the same thing, then I might as well bundle something together, you know, to say, you know, if many people wanted, well, this is what I started to notice. So I didn't create a content types one where you could pick you say you want to list document types with a template, so that's ones that are only accessible by URL. But so I've added that. But what I noticed through the telemetry was that people were starting to build custom ones of these. So now I've built that so they don't have to do it themselves. So yeah, so it's quite. The more recent releases, I've bundled loads of data sources in there.
Nice one. Thank you very much for the demo, Lee. Very good. Did you draw that doodle yourself, by the way?
Of the little
Lee was here.
Kilroy was here. Yeah, Lee was here. Yeah. Well, Oh yes. I mean, there was a bit of a backstory with that. When you build so many of these packages and they get used by so many people and nobody knows who, you know, that I have done that. It was my little thing of saying, well, no, I did that and I'm now part of your back office.
Nice.
I mean, love it or hate it, you know, it's just it was a bit of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of questions from the Q&A. Warren's asking, I think you mentioned this before when you were looking at the notes, but it says, can I extend the list of data sources for this by implementing a C# class? Yes,
you can. There is documentation upon the GitHub repo. Let me just find. So there's like a link in the most recent version. If you scroll down to the bottom, I never know where to put these things. If you scroll down to the bottom, there is a link saying you can extend with your own. And there is information on the GitHub repo if it wants to take a while to load up. So it shows you how to implement your own data source. So the example is to do like time zones from the .NET framework, and it is that pretty much that method. Nice. So yes, totally possible.
Cool. And one more. You mentioned analytics, Lee. I'm curious what you're tracking and how it's helping you improve the package.
Everything. Okay, so I've tried to be as transparent as this, and the funny thing with open source is that no matter how transparent you are, nobody notices. So what I do have in, if I can get down to it, there is, have I hidden it? Oh, I'm zoomed in. Right. No, I maybe need to reload this screen. Right, there's a tree that comes with contentment, because it's all about ego. So there is a tree which comes with contentment. There are, I can't show. I've disabled telemetry. There are two options that can be configured in code. One is if you think that this tree is annoying and you don't want to have it, there is this code snippet to say, okay, bye, go away, don't ever see you again. And likewise, there was one for the telemetry feature which I've disabled on my development site because I don't want to pollute my own stats. But if that is if that's not enabled, if telemetry is enabled, there will be some information here that says about where the telemetry is. I've got documentation on the GitHub repo, and there's information on the README. I won't go to it, but cutting to the chase, I have a website, and the website, and this is publicly accessible, but the website will show how many versions of contentment I've released, how many unique installs of Umbraco, how many versions of Umbraco that it covers. So data list, if you notice this, the most popular editors, data list is by far if I zoom in a bit more, is by far more popular than, well, like a factor of 10, but more popular than the next one. But yeah, just to kind of show what versions that this has been covering and what I need to support. And, but that, yeah, so it's being used 493 times over 199 Umbraco instances. So that means that quite a few of those Umbraco instances are using them multiple times, which is great. So the next part of the telemetry is to drill down about data lists, because I realize it's so popular, of which of the data sources are being used and which of the list editors are being used. And we can see out of those, however, 400 odd. And yeah, it's mostly drop-down lists. So there we go. That was the killer package idea, a Umbraco content drop-down list. Yeah, and then just some stuff about the versions that are being downloaded, like which was the most in use, which is the most popular. Oh yeah, and there was code here, even here, to say if you want to delete it, you can do. So I mean, obviously it's all open source in terms of being able to see when I'm capturing this information and what's being sent. That's, oh, actually, I write this at the beginning. I'm trying to be super transparent. What type of data is being captured? So when you save a data type, it is sending this information to me, which is just sending your Umbraco like tracking ID, which is used for Umbraco HQ's telemetry. The data type GUID, which is non-identifiable, the Umbraco version, a contentment version, and then just if you're using data list, what's the configuration of it. So no extra configuration, like any sensitive data. I don't care if you're using the XML or the SQL ones. I don't care in your SQL statements. I just want to know, are you using this? Which one are you using? So yeah, and I collate that data, and that's all. It's
really nice though, because that kind of shows that you wanting to give back again, doesn't it? It's not just for your ego trip, but it also shows you're looking at what people are using and you're building upon. Yeah,
because before I added the telemetry, I had no idea anyone was using the icon picker. I thought, oh, I need to get rid of this because there's just no point in having it, because, well, this was before the icon SVGs were introduced. And it turns out that 8 people are using it. And, you know, on some sites, they're using it multiple times. So yeah, it has been used. Whether that, you know, is that enough to warrant supporting it in future, I'm not sure, but it's enough for me to say it can stay. Yeah, but on just the one, yeah, about the data sources again, is that, you know, currently with all that latest, all the data I've got, is that there's 107 custom data sources, you know, doing things I'm not sure what they do, but also 14 custom list editors. Now I don't know what other types of list editors are humanly possible, checkboxes, whatever, but if there are, I'd love to know. I'd love to know what are you doing with it. So yeah, that's been super helpful for me to give it a bit of direction for future.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for giving us the demo, Lee. It's been fantastic, and it's been really interesting to understand a little bit more about what kind of goes on behind the scenes and the aftercare that you give to the package as well. Thanks very much.
Cool, thank you.
It was quite interesting doing the award where the judging panel, Posey, who was part of the judging panel, went mental when he discovered contentment and what he can do. He was so freaked out. It was quite funny.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
So we have one more demo to show. We've got a little bit of time left to get this in, but this is Skybird Redirects, which won the Best Developer Tool at the Package Awards this year. And David is going to give us a little bit of a demo as to how this works.
I will at least try. And
yes, Anders apologizes. He can't be here either.
Yeah, so you should see my screen.
Yes.
So it's basically a basic Umbraco installation 8.15, and I installed the package here in NuGet, and what it gives you is basically a new dashboard on your content section where you can actually configure your redirects, which is more or less straightforward. You can have multiple sites where it should react to. You can enter the URL you want to redirect to. And as we have seen, Lee, I will just do a little bit of that. And as I installed the starter kit, I can actually have that, which I can then add. And it's saved. And if I now go to that page, we should actually see a redirect happen. I'm crossing fingers here, and it does, which is what it should do. And the interesting thing is you can not only do that for actual content, as you might have seen, you can actually have more stuff as a destination. You can have actually custom URL. You can also link to media if you want to. Let's see. There's Lee again. And we will that and original. Let me see. Type. And see, we should now see the image. There you go. And that is basically it. Yeah, I wasn't aware of the package before we have done the judgment, and it was quite good that I discovered it because I used it recently in a project at work. So yay!
So you can do all sorts of things with that as well, can't you? You can change it from whether it's permanent or temporary redirect.
Yep, exactly. So you have some settings. You can have permanent redirects. You can have temporary. You can actually say if you want to forward the query string if one is attached. And as you can see, you can, when you select the destination, you can also do quite a lot of things with attaching query strings and stuff. Yeah. So it's quite useful, I guess, and we'll definitely install that one to every new project I will work on in Umbraco. Yep. So that's it, more or less, quickly. So
cool. Thanks, David. Just before we wrap up, then I'll stick my slides back on because Lotte snuck this in at the last minute, didn't he? So
I had to prove I read the slides.
I did spend all night on them.
Well, it was just, I just thought we should mention that, of course, there were 4 other winners of awards as well. Next slide, please. But these, but these 4 are commercial packages that won. So we hope that people understand that today we wanted to give some airtime to the open source non-commercial package award winners, because of course all these 4, we have Vendor from Outfield Digital who won Best Expansion, Uskin Site Builder Best Theme, Your Marketing Suite Best Package Care Holistic Experience, and already mentioned Usync Complete, the overall winner. As they're commercial packages, they will already have their space through which to advertise, promote, show demos, create videos for their packages. So today we wanted to, as I say, just give some promotion to those non-commercial package award winners, because they were all being judged against each other. So that's why we only invited the open source award winners to join us today. So I just wanted to say that, okay, in case anyone was wondering that we forgot half of the awards. And I think that's it. And it's 4 o'clock in the UK.
That's a wrap, folks. Yeah.
Perfect timing, unless we have any other questions, but I haven't seen any in the Q&A. So I think that's time to finish. And we say thank you, and we say congratulations and thank you to all the award winners, and especially to Sam and Lee for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Okay.
Bye bye.
See you later.
Bye.